Hello, peeps, and hello, peppers, and welcome to Movie Monday, which I'm doing this week instead of Film Friday because on Friday I was so tired. If you've never been here, welcome. I am a German artist living in Iceland with multiple disabilities, and I have to sort of work around very changeable energy levels. And the movie I want to present today is not the white shark, because this is the blue shark, this is Sharona. But I want to talk about Molly, like the 1999 film about autism, who actually my first autism counselor found pretty good. Um, but I also have seen like a comment on the internet that this film doesn't age well and is so cringe. So, yeah, now from the point of view of my tarot cards and of an autistic person like me, let's retell the film. I would say five is always the number of change in classical tarot, and also in my favorite movie, that's another one. Do the right thing for the right reason is actually a good input for this film, because here is like 30 something Buck and 28-year-old Molly. They have to find a way to form a unity as a family because their parents died, and the institution where Molly always lived in and also found a special friend who sort of works as what I call a social translator in today's time. Like this institution closes down, and actually the doctors and I don't know if you would call them pedagogues in this case. They just phone Buck and dump Molly on Buck without explaining anything handy to him. Like, he is not really aware that like he either needs to kind of lead her to the bathroom or diaper her. Um, compare traditional versus new approaches to see which works for you. So actually, this is a very good input to describe this movie, because it centers around the idea that, like, first, Molly has very limited speech and such a cramped way of walking. Actually, I find it interesting that she holds the hands up to the chest. Like, usually, I know that from my other disability, cerebral palsy. I have never seen any autistic person as such doing this, but yeah. Buck doesn't know what to do with the whole picture of Molly, the whole being of Molly, and then this film starts propelling a stem cell transplant, which I have actually never heard of for autism. But actually, I have heard of it for cerebral palsy, but I have my reasons to not do it. And I actually don't know who performs it in reality. So the film is also a little bit science fiction for 1999, I would say. A spiritually minded community, okay, that is maybe not apt to the film, but let's say Molly reads old books to Buck after the surgery, and she's sort of a little bit like a fairy tale being. Also, her dress looks a little bit like these butterfly wings. And Buck slowly learns to communicate with her, but only after the surgery. And that's kind of the sad thing, like, because in the reality that I know, we don't have the surgery. And when I encounter autistic people with limited speech or with, let's say, other intense needs that I can't cater for because I don't know how, then I'll take a step back and assess the situation and try to find a way with them how to solve this. And like the lovers, yes, I have actually like not seen the whole film in a while, but I found it on in full length on the internet. If you search a bit, um, then you can also find it and can form your own opinion. Um, as far as I see the fragments that I've now seen so far and that have refreshed my memory, um, Molly asks Buck to marry him because she doesn't have a concept of our life reality like that siblings don't get married, but she also has this special connection to her social translator. Um, I don't know how much private life Buck has. This figurine actually looks a little bit like Molly, like this. As soon as she gets out of her cramped posture, which actually coincides with increased opportunities to express herself because of the surgery, then she is this like free spirited young woman. And like even before the surgery, she dances in the street and jumps around in a decorative fountain, and that reminds me so much of like what my acquaintances in the autism community call neuroqueering, like taking the space for their own needs. And like she doesn't sort of ask if she's allowed to do like these stimming behaviors, like stimming is sort of any form of moving the body to regulate oneself. Um, I would actually say this reminds me a little bit of the doctor in the movie who wants to do this experimental surgery and drives it ahead, even though it may look a little bit weird and creepy. And actually, Buck also complains to the doctor to not treat Molly like a lab rat. Um, Justice. Ah, yeah, okay. This sort of costume I sometimes see in the autism community, like this punky, quirky, and also elvish stuff that people like to dress up with. Um, when I started the movie tonight, I just can't watch it in full length now because otherwise it's dark and then I can't film in daylight. I also noticed that she is like sitting in split, like really stretching her legs really far. This is maybe not unusual, but to me it rings a bell on the connection of autism and hypermobility of joints. That is just recently explored, so nobody could have the idea in 1999, or at least I would think it was not that common. But I consider the film a good conversation starter. Of course, the comment "everything's so cringe and everything's so stereotype" is also a thing. But what I find good so far is the camera basically follows Molly. Like everything looks huge. Everything is like, look, something's blinking, something's making noise. And Molly sort of lives on her own terms. And when she, like, due to the surgery, learns to speak more coherently and more complex, She also tells Buck and other people what it looks like in her inner world. Um, let's say in 1999, I actually still was in high school, and I actually talked to someone who worked with autistic people, and even I was questioning at the time, can autistic people speak at all? And a person dedicatedly convinced me that some can. Um, and we didn't know that I had autism at the point, because I think at the point nobody would have said I have autism, because I didn't look as if the disability would affect my communication. But here, let's say I'm getting sort of an overkill from this picture, even though it's like really nice and light. And this also reminds me of Molly's dress after. After. Okay, I'm thinking in a mix of English and Icelandic. So after means again. And I actually, at some point, met a child with uh, limited speech, so I decided singing with that child. And the child actually enjoyed it and always said, after. So, yes, maybe we should address the point that, um, like, Buck tells a daycare within his company, um, he needs to deliver Molly to the daycare. Uh, then there comes the answer, but Molly is not a child. Yes, but she has the mind of a child, Buck says. And then the nanny sort of says, but we are not equipped to handle Molly. And this is like a realistic problem, because like, it's one thing that this children's daycare is not equipped to have, like, let's say, someone with the mind of a child but the strength of an adult. And but also, like, let's say Buck is left alone. And I mean, Buck is a little bit pictured like, let's say, the fool in the story, uh the workaholic, the person who is basically bad because he wants to show up to work. I mean, of course, he is not fundamentally bad, like, especially as Molly learns more, he wants to connect more to Molly, but then, like, she regresses again because the surgery just didn't bring the stability that was hoped for. So in this respect, the film is a little bit like this. Has anyone here seen At First Sight with Val Kilmer? That's a love movie where, like, Val Kilmer is a blind massagist, and he works on a redhead woman named Amy, and they fall in love because this massage thing is a little bit juicy, and she insists that he undergo a surgery to restore his eyesight that was sort of schematic when he was a little child. And then, actually, let's say that works for some time, and let's say he also gets like the total overkill because yeah, because he can't even process the impression, the all the impressions of the world around him. And then he regresses again, and let's say Amy has to come to terms with that he will always be a blind man, but a good man and her big love. And, like, yeah, it's similar here with Molly, that like, Buck now has had a glimpse of how it is to have a reasonable conversation with Molly, and she questions a lot of ethics of the modern world, which I see, like, a lot in today's verbal autism community. I have not spoken personally to like a nonverbal autistic grown up. And this is a little bit difficult. I just don't know enough about it. If anyone has like really a serious resource to read more about it, or like a good documentary film about ways of expressing oneself, please comment. I'm seeing those posts on Facebook by parents of non-speaking children. They can be also very interesting and very well reflected, but yeah, I find it always more interesting to talk to the individuals, like or to consume materials and research where the researcher talked to the individual directly as far as was possible. So yes, I would say doctors are the emperors in such stories, but I think actually here this is like sort of, yeah, this is Buck or also Amy from At First Sight accepting that they don't hold the world in their hands, they don't have control over events. They just kind of have to listen to their hearts and embrace their dear ones the way they are, and actually learn to work together the way they are. And I wish you a wonderful evening where you can work together with your dear ones just the way everyone is. Bye bye.